February 22nd, 2012 meeting of the Lowell Conservation Commission. We only have one item on the agenda for this evening, and it's been continued from prior hearings and prior meetings. So I'll call it Samkan Kun, Community of Khmer Buddhist Monks, Inc., concerning DEP file number 2060685. Project location being 48 and 104 Townsend Avenue and 800.1 and 810 Varnum Avenue. It's after the fact filing for clearing temporary structures and mobile home installation in bordering land subject to flooding or the floodplain. Mr. Erickson, if you could kindly identify yourself for the record,
I'm
please.
Stephen Erickson from North Environmental Services. The commission has seen this plan. They had requested that we get signed, stamped copies. We have submitted those to the commission, and the commissioners had asked who was going to be the general contractor. The community has contracted with Cassandrian Enterprises to provide those services. So we have a communication person that we can deal with right away if the commission has any questions or concerns about the site. But the plan is what you've seen before, except for the signatures and stamp from the surveyor and professional engineer.
There's a couple of changes from the last plan at the last meeting. Could you just explain what those changes are and how they, how they populated themselves onto the most recent plan that we're looking at?
The surveyor had gone out and he'd done a more detailed topography, especially in the area of the remains of the old road coming in. So he's got a little bit more detail on the topography, and he ran it through the program again. So the topography changes a little bit in that area, but not significantly.
I'd just like to make the comment, at least for me, that when and if this comes up for a further filing, for more detailed or for more development of the site, that I, for one, would like to see more topographic details. I still, from my own personal observations of the site, don't necessarily feel that we have enough precision or enough details with respect to at least the remnants of, as described on the plan, the remnants of the old road. I'm looking at, I'm looking at elevations crossing the road, and it would be expecting that the remnants of the old road would be more clearly defined on the plan. I know that it's drawn out on the plan, but the elevations don't seem to match, at least the personal observations in the field. The remnants of the old road near the, to the east of the temporary temple is fairly well defined. I mean, you can see it. And the elevations are, significantly over the existing topography. But and although that shows towards the, towards that southwestern corner, that inland corner there by the cemetery, it doesn't really extend up to the north all that much, as you would expect. So what I would suggest, and what I would, and again, it's not going to hold me, at least for me, it's not going to hold me up as far as this goes, but if and when this goes for further, I think we'd need to see more details.
I think when we have a footprint of a structure that's going out there, since it is in the floodplain, it makes perfect sense to detail that area so that we have everything down as tight as possible.
Yeah, I guess my point is I don't want to accept this particular plan and this particular filing as the final topography on the site. It's sufficient. It seems to have sufficient detail for this particular project, but going forward, because of the floodplain sensitivity, going forward, I just don't think it has enough detail to to show exactly where cuts and fills could be made, understanding that the entire site is under the 100-year floodplain. So, you know, it's because of that, there's very limited areas where you can take cuts from. So I think it would behoove you or the applicant to show with some really defined and really precise detail, you know, those particular areas, the road being one of the higher elevations, at least near where, I'm assuming where a temple would be placed.
They haven't done the access route to Ferry Road yet either, so that's gonna have to be done as well, and we're gonna have to get some more details in that area.
So I just want to make the comment that, at least for me, with the understanding that I wouldn't necessarily accept the elevations as shown on this plan as far as any future work in going forward, just for the sake of this particular retrospective project. So that's my only comment. I had requested at the prior hearing, Mr. Erickson, some details as to the nature of the hookups. Is that, you know, sewer, water, electrical, utilities? Is that something that Mr. Kazanjian would be and is certified to be able to make those disconnects?
He's got licensed plumbers doing work for him and licensed electricians that will make those connections in accordance with all the state and local building codes.
All right. Okay. I have no further questions. Commissioner Chaluka?
I'm satisfied with the information we have here as far as just the construction trailer, but I agree that just based on the site visit we took and what we perceive to be different grades from what we see on the map here, I'd like to see in the future more detailed plans if and when you want to do more construction on the other parts of the site. That's all.
Commissioner Varnum?
One thing I'm noticing on this latest plan is that the proposed gravel access is no longer on it. Have you drawn it on that one that's up for display? Because it doesn't show on the copy that, right?
Yeah, it's on this plan. It's on the other plans that were submitted to you. It's not on the revised topo plan with the stamp on it.
Well, this is the one we're going to be using, I think. And I think it should be on there if this is a plan we're going to refer to.
The plan, this plan is one of the plans that you're referencing, and that is signed and stamped by a professional engineer and surveyor. So you've got multiple copies of plans on this. You've got enlargements of some areas, like these. And you've got several different views of the property with all of that information on it.
Well, I think what we're going to do is reference not every particular plan that you've filed, 5 or 6 here, I think. It's usually the last one that we reference, and perhaps you want to reference the blown-up versions of the trailer site and the tent site. No, that was just something I noticed. I wondered why it was no longer on there. The other thing I've noticed on this latest plan is the only structure, other than the proposed trailer, is the large temporary temple. We no longer have any of the smaller structures on this plan.
Those were removed. The tent was gone, and so none of that stuff is there anymore.
The frame of the main tent is still there, if I'm correct.
Yes, I think you're right. Yeah.
And I'm not sure there were, all of the others have been removed, is that what you're saying?
That was my understanding.
Because one of the structures was fairly permanent looking, it was rather heavy looking.
That's the big,
It was another smaller temple, I believe. It looked pretty sturdy. I wonder, has that been moved away?
I'm not sure which one you're referring to.
It-
We had the tents over here, and those have been removed, and the food preparation tents were removed.
But now they're still on your plan, but they're not on ours. That's the problem I'm having with this.
Well, on the latest revised plan, they existed when this plan was completed. They didn't exist when he revised the topography, so we updated that section of it.
Oh, okay, so I'm looking at, if you could flip that over again, that's the one I'm looking at.
This was the original plan.
Okay, well, you're working from a plan that I don't have.
It is in the file. We did submit multiple copies.
I have all of the copies, but I'm just trying to determine which one you want us to be looking at tonight.
I think this one makes sense. It seems to have all the details on it.
And what's the date of that one?
You say that, you're saying that's stamped which date? Okay, I mean, Commissioner Varna makes a good point. We've got a plan that we're here discussing tonight, stamped February 14th of this year. But it doesn't, as Commissioner Varnum states, doesn't show the gravel access way into the proposed trailer. The plan that I'm looking at that you have on the easel over there is Plan C1. Yeah, I mean, they're all labeled topographic plans, so we're, you know, that's kind of not very helpful as referring to which plan we're talking about. The one stamped 12/12/11 shows the gravel access way into the plan, but that's the one that we've asked for numerous revisions to, and we're finally ending up with the plan dated or stamped February 14th. But you need to show everything you want to do on one plan. I mean, we're not going to be, you know, we'll accept this part of this plan, and it gets way too confusing. We're going to accept one plan, and if it's not on the plan we accept, then you can't do it. So it's...
The latest plan you have is an existing conditions plan. This is a proposed plan.
Which, this, that, which? Use dates and specifics.
This plan is proposed.
Which this? We're making a record here, Mr. Erickson. I need to know which one you're talking about.
This is 8/24/11, shown as plan number.
Okay, they're all dated 8/24/11. That's, every single plan we have is dated 8/24/11. That's the original date for the filing and for all the plans.
Does have a reference to January 4th, 2012, in the upper corner. The existing plan, existing conditions plan shows a date of 2/14/12.
All right, the most recent plan that we received in our packages and what we've been talking about, at least initially at this meeting, is stamped by Leo White, February 14th, 2012. It's entitled Topographic Plan for Community of Khmer Buddhist Monks, Inc., on Townsend Ave, Varnum Ave, Lowell, Mass. It's a date, and then with a date of 11/30/2011. Original date is 8/24/2011. It has numerous revisions to it. Revision 1, January 21st, 2012. Revision 2, January 27th, 2012. Revision 3, February 7th, 2012. And Revision 4, February 14th, 2012. I don't see the title that you're referring to.
That's the same plan I've got with the dates, but this is an existing conditions plan.
Well, where does it say that?
It doesn't say that, and I know that from
So
working on the
don't use
property.
that, don't use that then, because what we're looking at is a topographic plan. If you want it to be an existing conditions plan, label it as such. It's not labeled as such. So I just want to be clear on that. This is, I mean, we have the earlier plans. Now, these are the ones that we considered at the early January hearings. They're stamped by Leo White, December 12th, 2011, with no revisions, and they're the ones originally dated August 24th, 2011, also entitled Topographical Plan for Richard Boyle, not the Khmer monks, but this one's for Richard Boyle on Townsend Ave and Varnum Ave, with an original draw date of November 30th, 2011, and a revision of December 7th, 2011. It's stamped up in the upper right-hand corner. I'm not sure by whom. It looks like Diane Evers. Okay. And that's stamped and dated January 4th, 2012. And that one's in the lower right-hand corner is labeled, it's part of a series, C1, 8/9, 2011. It's some project number. That must be private nomenclature. Now, there's further plan C2, which is a blow-up and shows more detail. And all three of those plans that I just referenced have the gravel access way into the proposed trailer, show other buildings that have been removed. But those are the plans that we've been discussing and we've had disagreements with, and we've requested further revisions to. And I'm assuming that we're ending up with the plan that's stamped and dated by Mr. White of February 14th, 2012, but that plan now no longer shows the gravel access way, the other outbuildings which have been removed, so that would make sense. But since you're proposing the trailer and proposing the gravel access way, and I believe at the site visit that we had, there was some discussion as to the utilities coming in a different direction from what was originally proposed. I think you need to be showing that on this particular plan. We're not, I mean, as far as this project goes, I'd make a guess that we probably have 8 to 10 plans that we've seen over the course of at least, 3 or 4, maybe 5 hearings now, and we're not gonna be, it just gets way too confusing. I've probably mentioned 20 dates already. I've probably, just in the last 5 minutes, and it just gets way too confusing if we're saying, hey, we're gonna accept the upper left-hand corner of this plan and the lower right. We don't do that. It's all on one plan, or it's all on a series of accepted plans. But we're not gonna take some of it off of one plan that we've asked for revisions for, and then it doesn't populate itself to the plan that we're looking at. All right.
Plan C2 is simply an enlargement of the other plan. The
Yeah, but it
commission
doesn't-
specifically
but the-
asked for an enlargement, we produced it.
Okay, I understand that, Mr. Erickson, but the elevations don't match the one that we're looking at now.
That's right, it doesn't match the existing topography that was recently revised.
And neither does C1, which shows the detail around the trailer. The topographies don't match. Hey. Yeah, all right. Okay, we've established that. I'm sorry, Commissioner Varnum, if you have any further questions.
I had another question about, I think I recall maybe Mr. Walsh talking about regrading house lot number 58 Townsend, regrading the yard. It shows as a sort of a depression there, but I don't think we really have on record what it is that you're proposing to do there.
We didn't file to regrade that property. The only regrading that's proposed is the stone entry for the trailer.
Okay, so the depression on one side of the yard is going to remain as it is now?
Yes.
Can I just interrupt for a second? Thanks. What the plan that you're showing now, when is that stamped and dated? Because that's not the plan that I'm looking at that was submitted with our package. All right, we've got, Mr. Erickson, we've gone beyond that plan. We are so far beyond it. We've got 3 revisions past that plan, I think. We're not even using that one anymore.
We didn't upgrade every plan with the changes in the topography. The changes in the topography were relatively minor. We had the surveyors go out at the request of the commission to tighten up the topography that's showing the existing conditions of the property. This is the proposed plan showing the work that was proposed on the property. It's typical.
Which one? This one here?
Yes,
The one that's on the easel?
yes.
That's the one dated December 12th, 2011. What's the stamp date? From Mr. White, what's the stamp date?
Stamp date is 12/12/11.
All right, that one, that's the one that we asked for all the revisions to. That was the one done before the site visit from the commission. And we've asked for revisions to that plan. We're not working with that one anymore. We've had at least 2 plans since the site visit that we've been working with. That one's, we're not considering that one anymore. So I'm gonna ask you something, it's out of order for it to even be up there. Take it down, we're not looking at that one anymore, okay? All right, this one is which? This was part of that package, though. This was part of the...
This is the enlargement that the
Right,
commission had asked for.
this was the enlargement. This one's also dated December 12th, I believe, correct? It's just an enlargement of the one... Yeah, no, that's the... That's the architect one. Yeah, that's the Diane Evers architect stamp. I'm not concerned about that one. That one's not part of our particular. That's just an enlargement of the 1212 one, which we asked for. I remember that, but since then, we've had the site visit, and we've asked for revisions to the topography on those. So we're not even considering those anymore. We still want the details, but we're considering a plan that was submitted February 4th, well, we had the plan at the last hearing that was unsigned and undated. Now we're looking at a plan dated February 14th, 2012. Yes. That's the one we're dealing with tonight. And as Commissioner Varnum pointed out, it doesn't carry through some of the stuff that you've already done, and that you want us to consider, and you really need to show that on the same plan. I know Mr. White and Mr. Close can do that because it's done all the time. Those changes are made to plans, the proposals and what you propose to do just carries through from one plan to the next. Your plan should be complete, it should show all the work.
Have them update that
Yeah,
as part of the order of conditions.
we don't want to be considering one plan and then some of the detail is being shown on another plan that is not really even before us anymore, that we're not, we've considered it, we've rejected it, and we've moved on from it. You need to show what you're proposing to do on the same plan that we're going to approve. Otherwise, you're going to get another stop work order, and we don't want to be coming back here over and over and over and over and having to do that. I understand that the C2 plan, that December 12th, the only problem I have with that is that the topography is different on the two plans. The topography on the February 14th is different. The topographical lines are in different locations, and they show a closure, whereas this one, the most recent plan shows a closure, the other one didn't. It showed it flowing back in onto the site. So, the lines are definitely in different locations, they're in different places, and the elevations are in different places. It's also true of the temporary temple area, which was the other blow-up area. The elevation lines are different. They're clearly different, and you don't want us to be considering, a plan that doesn't have the details and the proposals that you want to do, because you don't.
The topo was not significantly different. You're right, it's different. At the request of the commission, it was updated, but it doesn't change the proposed work. The work is the same.
But you're not showing the proposed work on the plan that we're considering. And I think that was Commissioner Varnum's.
It's not unusual.
I interrupted her a second time, so I'm going to let her go without further
I think the other
interruptions.
thing, if we're adding to the most recent plan, is that you had shown the area that has been cleared, because that was one of our considerations as to whether or not we're approving work already done. You had that on one of your plans.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to see that shown as well. And, anything that you had on other plans that we requested, as the chairman said, should end up on the latest plan.
We can do that.
Commissioner Moore?
Yeah, not to go over what's been gone over already, but I think I'd really like to see just two new maps, one as-built that's definitive, one that's proposed that's definitive, and then I feel like we'd be in good shape. And one thing I am curious about, as Commissioner Varnum mentioned, there was an early map, which is, I think, not the one that's up there now. It showed the temple plus 4 other structures, and now we're down to just the temple. So that is the case. The other 2 that were out there like 2.5 weeks ago have been removed?
Part of it was tents that were removed. My understanding is the rest of it was removed, but I haven't been out there in a while, so I can't say with definitively.
Okay. At the time of the site visit, there was the temple plus a few other structures, and I just would like that as-built to show that for sure. One thing that's come up a few times was the full structure of the contingency planning for the trailer removal. And I don't know that we've seen all the details on who makes the call as to when that's going to happen and what will lead to that and who their backup person is. I understand that we've got the cell number of somebody at Kazanjian Enterprises, but a second number so we don't have that one person as a choke point would be good as well.
I think you did have that, but I'll check the file again.
Okay, yeah, that would be great. And one other thing, just to be sure, as this is similar to what Commissioner Varnum just mentioned, an early plan showed the full extent of the existing clearing, and there was another plan that showed some clearing that was proposed around the cemetery. Now that hasn't taken place, and I don't believe it's within the scope of either of the two pieces of this that we're currently looking at. We're just looking at the after-the-fact clearing and the trailer area, no additional clearing.
Again, we didn't
correct?
update all of the other plans to match the existing conditions plan. It's not unusual to have an existing conditions plan and a proposed plan.
Right.
They're showing
let's get
entirely
one
different things.
Let's get one definitive version of each, and then I think we'll be all set.
We can do that.
And that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose that's what made me confused, and it still has me confused, because we don't have a quote-unquote an existing conditions plan and a proposed plan. We have, every single plan here is labeled topographical plan. So, you know, to make reference to an existing conditions plan or to a proposed plan, we don't have that.
We can have them put a new label on it.
Yeah, I mean, it's only a label, but it makes for confusion when you're going from one plan to the next to the next.
Unfortunately, I don't do the drafting, but I'll see to it that it
No,
gets
I
directed.
understand that. Commissioner Lynch?
I don't have any new questions. Just want to reiterate what the commissioners have already stated about the maps and trying to get, you know, 2 maps that we can look at, the as-built and then the proposed, to make sure that that's what is being voted on and agreed on. So just, again, if we can get that, I think that'll be good.
Okay.
Anything further from the commission? Anything further? All right, is there anyone here, just, I know many of you folks have already spoken, but I have a policy, if you're here, you're entitled to speak, so some of the boards just open it up at the very end, but yes.
I actually didn't speak at the last meeting, but I have new information from the last meeting, and I wanted to know if Craig could give this to the commissioners. Okay. I'm just going to make 2 comments on this map here. It's just that it says 58, and we're talking about 48. And there is a neighbor next door that has a property 58, and that plan is saying 58, and you really, aren't we talking about 48? So I thought I'd mention that. And those structures that you mentioned that have come down, if that's the case, wouldn't that be against the orders to stop work if they went in after you went in? Wouldn't that be that they went in to take down structures and they weren't supposed to? I think the structures are still there. I don't know if he's actually been out there, but I don't believe they're down, so thought I'd mention that. But I really want to start talking about the trailer. Since the last time we were here at the last meeting, everyone talked about we needed to concentrate on the temporary mobile home. And I did some research on a temporary mobile home in that area. 100-year floodplain is a different area, and I realize that it's not something that's talked about every day, but if you live there, you know a little bit more about it than maybe other people that live outside the area, and it starts to be a concern if you think that there's going to be things that are going to change the area that you live in, especially if there's a flood. And there's 18 pages here. I don't expect you to read it all tonight, but there are some highlights I want to point out, and I'd like them in the minutes, so I'll put up on the website. And one would be the first 2 pages of this 18-page report. It's the FEMA plan. It's a Federal Emergency Management Agency's requirements for a mobile home and 100-year floodplain. They talk about a manufactured/mobile home must be elevated and anchored to a permanent foundation to resist flotation, collapse, or lateral movement. And I've noticed on the agenda, they keep referring to a mobile home. Sometimes they say trailer, but technically they're really asking about a mobile home, which means if you start to talk about mobile homes in a 100-year floodplain, things start to change. So you can review that at some point, if you could please do that for us. And I just have like 5 comments. Forgive my typos. Okay, the first one is, Ed Walsh had stated that Enel tells us when it floods so that they'll have time to move the mobile home. And I have permission from the city manager to quote the city manager's email when he said, Enel does not tell us when it will flood. Okay, if the city had certainty that we were about to be flooded, they would have made sure that we evacuated before 2 a.m. on Mother's Day flood of 2006, before the fire department had come and directed us to an emergency shelter. Plus, I'm sure no car would have been left on the street like the pictures I've shown you in that packet. Mainly Shirley Ave, Ferry Road, Townsend. Okay, there are cars that never made it out of Shirley Ave and Townsend Ave. They did not make it out for 1 or 2 reasons. I'm not sure which one. One could be that the water was too deep and too fast, or number 2, the emergency management did not allow cars on the street or the roads to either leave or maybe both. Okay, the applicant said that there's a monetary incentive to move the mobile home out. Yet if you notice in those photographs, the Grandview was under construction in 2006, and they could not move their trailer that they used as the sales office, or their truck, the payloader, during the flood. So again, either the water was too high, too deep, it came too fast, or again, emergency management did not allow the vehicles on the roads or the streets. Now, the applicant said that the mobile home could be moved during a flood, and I maintain they cannot. The ground would be too saturated for any heavy equipment truck to pull a 65-foot mobile home out of a floodplain up to a higher ground. The last page of that package, it's not a very good photograph, but it's a temporary temple that we took a picture of in the fall. That wasn't even the spring. So you can see that that temple, the temporary one they're using right now, you can see the land around it so saturated, and you can also see that it's, you can put the picture farther away, you can see it better. But that's in the fall, so that's not even the spring. And lastly, even attempting to move the mobile home would jeopardize the ability of anyone on Townsend Avenue in the surrounding streets to get out safely, because the street on Townsend, it's only 15 feet in some areas and 20 feet wide in the other. So if you go from Varnum down Townsend to the boulevard, there's no car that could pass a tow truck that's trying to get out a trailer, which they mentioned was 65 feet. That's twice the size of my house. And also the fact that on the plan it doesn't say how big the trailer is. Okay, so it would be very difficult for anyone to leave Townsend Ave, and also it would be very difficult for an emergency vehicle to be able to come in and help us to get out. So I'm asking that you deny any temporary mobile home permit for 48 Townsend Ave for all of the reasons that I mentioned. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to offer their comments? Just this evening? All right. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Linda Harvey, and I live on Melrose Avenue. I moved here in 2005 and was shocked when we were flooded in 2006, thinking that that was our 100-year event. No one thought would flood again the next spring. No one can predict the weather, but you have to be prepared for it. Until you live through a flood, you have no idea how quickly the water rises and how strong the current is. In 2006, my neighbors woke me in the middle of the night, and I could see the water flowing in the street toward Pawtucket Boulevard. I left 10 minutes later, but by then, the water was more than a foot deep. Streets and bridges were closed for 3 days, and I could only get to my house by kayak and canoe provided by my neighbors. One neighbor's heavy wooden boat flowed from his fenced-in yard 3 houses down to my backyard. My wooden chairs nearly reached the boulevard. The interior of my shed looked like someone had picked it up and shook it. water in the street was more than 3 feet deep. Clay Pit Brook floods first and flows toward the river until the river breaches its banks. There will be no time to get to the trailer to shut off the utilities. It all happens faster than you can imagine. The trailer will be carried by the water and become a hazard in the neighborhood. The wetlands off Old Ferry Road are a vital asset and should be protected, not developed. I've also saved some photos from the Lowell Sun from Wednesday, May 17th, 2006. This is Old Ferry Road during the 2006 flood. As you can see, the man's in water nearly up to his waist. There are other photos. If anyone would like to see these, I'd be glad to pass it around. I kept this because until you've been through the flood, you have no idea what it's like.
I'm going to give you two options. One is to withdraw what you just made as a comment with respect to the Lowell Sun article. The other is that, unfortunately, under the open meeting law requirements, any information that you provide for consideration becomes part of the record. And I don't know if that's your own personal copy.
It
or
is.
It has to become part of the record and has to stay with the commission's file. So that's it, and I'm assuming you don't want to surrender that copy of the Lowell Sun. That's why I'm bringing that up. We don't have a choice in the matter. If you want that to remain part of the record, that has to become part of the record. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is John Hamblett, 495 Varnum Avenue. And tonight, as co-chair, I'm representing the Pawtucketville Citizens Council. One comment on the map, as Ms. Forgione pointed out, number 48 is marked as number 58. If you go back to previous plans, it is marked correctly as 48 in previous plans. At the last meeting, I spoke of numerous concerns of the Pawtucketville neighbors and of this commission. And tonight my words are focused on the mobile home. As I understand it, you have 3 options to consider. The first is to not allow the mobile home. The second is the mobile home is a permanent structure. And the third is a temporary mobile home. The first choice of not allowing a mobile home at all asks the question, isn't the applicant always allowed to build on property that they bought? And in my opinion, no, not if they were fully aware of the limitations of the property prior to purchasing it. We met with them in August and discussed the challenges of building in a floodplain. They've received the information verbally. They have received it in writing from the city. They have met with the Department of Planning and Development on numerous occasions. They have heard it in front of this commission, and they have hired a wetland scientist to advise them of the challenges and complications of building in the resource area. And they still went ahead and bought the property after knowing what they know. I don't feel this commission has any obligation to allow a permanent structure in the floodplain. The second is a mobile home is a permanent structure, and then it has to be up off the ground the same as all the rest of our homes. It has to be secured. The supports or pilings would have to be engineered to support the structure and all of the other building requirements that we have to go through. And the third, and clearly the most complicated, is to allow a temporary mobile home in the floodplain that would be removed in case of a flood. And it's this third option that makes us so uneasy. It is almost certain that this area will flood over the next 3 years, and the applicant will be forced to pull the trailer, the mobile home, off the property. Now, I say it's almost certain because NOAA has a tool on their website, and it's called the Advanced Hydrologic Prediction Service. And they predict the probability of a flood over the next 90 days. So this is what they are predicting are the chances of a flood in the next 90 days. I actually did this 2 days ago. So this is between now and May 18th. Between now and May 18th, there is a 30% chance of a minor flood, a 10% chance of a moderate flood, and a 4% chance of a 2006-2007 flood, like the pictures that Ms. Forgione has showed you. But that's only the next 3 months. As I understand it, this mobile home could reside on the property, could be placed on the property for 3 years, so all those numbers triple. The chances of a minor flood are 90% over the next 3 years, and the chance of a major 100-year flood is 12%. Now, you might be saying that a flood doesn't really count unless it's one of the severe ones, one that covers the entire property. But first, I'd like to take a look at what it takes to move a mobile home. First of all, if the mobile home is temporary, by definition, it will be removed from the site in case of a flood. I have no idea what was involved, so I spoke to a truck driver, a certified electrician who is responsible for moving 150 of these mobile homes similar to the one proposed, and a former assistant city manager who was in charge during one of the 2006-2007 floods. Now, the electrician said that assuming a quick disconnect had been installed, assuming the property is accessible and it's not underwater and there are no other obstacles, and assuming the electrician is not tied up elsewhere, the electricity could be disconnected by a licensed electrician fairly quickly, at the outside 2 hours. 2 hours is him getting a telephone call, getting his electric truck, coming over to the property, and doing whatever he needs to do for a quick disconnect. The truck driver said that if the ground is firm and there are no obstacles, no cars parked in the drive, no cars parked in the street, it could be moved in, again, under 2 hours. You call him up, he goes and gets his truck, he drives over, attaches it to the trailer, and pulls it out. What worries us are the conditions that have to exist for all of this to work. First, and most importantly, this has to be done before clay pit floods. NOAA has declared that on the Merrimack River, the action stage is 50 feet. 50 feet is down here somewhere before minor flooding. That's the action stage. This is the point at which the neighbors start moving things out of their basement. This is when the city goes on alert, 50 feet. And this is when mobile homes get moved. But that is the Merrimack River. And this is the Clay Pit Brook. And the Clay Pit Brook floods before the Merrimack River. By the time the Merrimack River hits the action stage of 50 feet, Townsend Avenue is flooded and probably closed. So as I just described, the problem is that Townsend Avenue floods from Clay Pit Brook from the north. I measured it yesterday. It's 19 feet wide in some places, 20 feet wide in the other. The mobile home is 16 feet wide. And so the truck cannot block access to Townsend Avenue. If water comes in Clay Pit Brook and closes Townsend Avenue from that end, the truck cannot block Townsend Avenue. And by the way, if they wait until the action stage, it's likely that Townsend has been closed long before. Now, we had testimony that during the flood there was a current, and the implication that much of this area is not just a floodplain, but a floodway. And a floodway, I learned, consists of a stream channel, in this instance, Clay Pit Brook, not the Merrimack, and the adjacent areas that carry flood flows. Now, this is a whole different ballgame, because if you block a floodway, the water level rises and more damage is done. There's no room for error in this plan. This trailer will float in 2.13 inches of water. I know it's hard to believe, but it has a 900 square foot footprint. And water weighs 62.4. Call it 60 pounds per cubic foot. So if water is 1 foot deep in a 900, call it 1,000, 1,000 times 60 is 60,000. It can displace 60,000 pounds. A 4-wheel mobile home weighs 10,000 pounds. A 6-wheel mobile home weighs 7 tons, 14,000 pounds. So to lift the trailer, we need 2 inches of water if it's got 2 axles, and 3 inches of water if it's got 3 axles. Do you get that? Because I had to redo the numbers about 4 times. So now we have an aircraft carrier floating freely. It weighs between 5 and 7 tons. You can't tie it down, because if you tied it down, then you're using up flood storage space. And it's not just blocking the floodway that's a problem. It's not just damaging our homes that's a problem. If this hits somebody, if it hits someone in a car, if it floats across the street and blocks it from emergency vehicles, we're now looking at the loss of life. There is no room for error in this option of putting a temporary trailer 16 feet wide and 65 feet long in a floodplain. We cannot support this plan of a temporary mobile home in the floodplain, and we ask you do not vote in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission?
I'd like to enter this as a matter of record, copies for the commission.
Is there anyone else who would like to offer their comments tonight? Yes, ma'am.
Linda Ignacio, formerly of 66 Shirley Ave. I still own the property there. And I've been there, I was there since 1976. So I've been through 3 floods in 78, 2006, and 2007. But in between that time, we also have major water problems. And I invite all of you, after it rains, to drive down Shirley Ave or Malden Ave, Melrose Ave, and you cannot walk down the street because the street is underwater by 75 to 100 feet, a whole length of one person's property from the corner of Malden down to 66 Shirley Ave. It's not even passable. That's when it rains. There's major problems there, and I don't think there should be any additional construction in the floodplain.
Thank you. Anyone else who would like to offer their comments or concerns? All right, the commission has asked for a consolidation of the information as far as the plans go, as far as consolidating everything on an existing conditions plan and a proposed plan. If we could get that done, at this point, would entertain a motion to continue to the 1st March, which I believe is the 1st, isn't it?
It's actually the 14th, I believe.
Say, oh, second, that's right, we're on the 2nd now,
second.
aren't we? That's, thank you. Which would be the 14th, okay. So the first March hearing on March 14th of 2012. Do I have a motion to continue at the request of the proponent?
I move to continue this issue until the first meeting in March 14th.
Second.
Seconded by, motion by Commissioner Chalupka, seconded by Commissioner Moore. Any discussion? All in favor? Signify by saying aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. All right, thanks, folks. This will be continued to the March 14th hearing. Hopefully that will be the last one, but we never know. Ma'am, your name, the one who had the Lowell Sun article, what's your name again, please? Linda Harvey? Did I get, okay, thank you. And I just want to make clear, Mrs. Harvey, that it's not everything is withdrawn, it's just with the pictures on the Lowell Sun. That's okay. Your other comments are part of the record and properly here. Okay, thank you. Craig, do we have any other business? Okay, since that's it, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
By Commissioner Varnum,
Second.
second by Commissioner Moore. All in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it. Good evening. Thank you for all coming in.
Yeah, what is our datum adjustment? 45 feet, 47 feet? Say that again? There's two that